Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to another video. This time we're going to be taking a look at update 7.4. I'm going to be going over all of the important changes here as usual. This patch is coming out on Tuesday, and there's actually a lot more here than I initially expected. So we've got some further details as to just what sort of a game mode Outbreak is going to be and how that's going to work. There are some great improvements coming to the SRAW and also Lis's TV missile. We've got a balance pass on the Nightbird, and then there's also some good changes coming for the XFAD 4 Draugr bomber. But before we get started, as always guys, if you enjoy the content here on the channel, hit that subscribe button. I'll be putting out as much Battlefield 2042 content as I can, amongst a smattering of other games until of course we start getting news about the new Battlefield game. I'm also going to be streaming a lot more both here and over on Twitch, so by all means feel free to follow me there as well if that's something that rocks your boat. Alright, with that said, let's just get straight stuck in here. So the new game mode, as you guys know, is going to be called Outbreak. It's releasing on Tuesday along with patch 7.4. And they say here, during this event, players will experience Outbreak, a new 4-player squad PvE experience where you will fight waves of augmented targets. Starting on the western end of Redacted, players fight through 8 sectors while completing objectives until they call an elevator to exfiltrate out on the far eastern end of the map. Outbreak is a high-intensity survival mode that will test your skills, with enemies getting tougher and tougher the farther you progress through the sectors, and your squad will need to find ways to overcome the augmented target's onslaught and counteract overwhelming waves of enemies. So basically, it's a zombie wave mode, but you're going to have to extract at the end of it. But there is more here. So they say players will be tasked with navigating through Redacted and adapting through successive waves, but as you progress, you will find armory stations to purchase weapons. Be warned, ensure that you use your resources wisely as they are limited. Remember, your final objective is to reach extraction. Augmented targets will respawn endlessly, so don't rush into the unknown. So it's going to be a 4-player PvE mode where you're going to get to pick your class and your specialist freely. I'm not sure exactly what they mean by freely. Do they mean you're going to be able to mix classes and specialists? I don't think so. Maybe it's just I'm reading too much into the wording here. Or you can select a specialist that would complement the other choices that your squad has selected. Players receive a single life per wave, and if one individual out of your squad survives, you'll be able to spawn on the next wave, but of course if you all die, then that's just going to be the end of the game. All specialist gadgets, traits, and class abilities are going to be active. Killing augmented targets will actually reward you with ascension points, which you can spend on upgrades for your weapons at armory stations. So I believe before they said you're going to be able to purchase new weapons at the armory station, and now towards the end they said you're going to be able to upgrade your weapons at these armory stations. Maybe both. That sounds honestly quite cool. I don't think upgrading your weapons has been something, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think it's been something we've seen in a Battlefield game before, so I'm definitely excited to see how that goes. Might be, you know, an interesting mode to play in between these PvP rounds of regular Battlefield, let's call it. Now, as for the unlockable weapons, unfortunately, as usual with these types of game modes, the ones that you can unlock free of charge by accruing, I guess, ribbons for this game mode, they're not really that great. You've got an epic weapon charm, there's an epic player tag, a rare player tag, and then there's an epic MP28 skin, which is one of the pistols in the game, which is, in my opinion, not really all too used. Then we have a store bundle, of course we do, for 2400 boins, and there you have the legendary Casper skin called Marked Man. And by the way, bear in mind, this is the Dead Space skin with the mask and the body armor and everything, and it seems like it's only going to be available for Casper. That is a massive oversight in my mind because, well, me personally, I never play Casper. I would wager to say that most people don't play Casper. So I really wish they would have made this like a universal skin maybe. Or at least a skin you can use on maybe one specialist from each of the classes. Then you've got a legendary Roche skin called Pierced Orbit. You've got an epic PP29 skin, an epic MP28 skin, which is the one you can unlock. So if you unlock it before you purchase the bundle will then be slightly cheaper. And then you've got another epic weapon charm. So pretty much what you'd expect from the rewards, I guess. Now moving on, let's take a look at some of the changes coming to the SRAW. So here they're saying, we've heard your feedback about the SRAW. We agree that this newly added rocket launcher is not up to par with the rest of its weapon class. With update 7.4, we are enacting the following changes which we believe will help to bring the SRAW into a more viable and attractive option. And if you guys recall, when this weapon released with Season 7, you know, it was just terrible to use compared to the Lissile. There really is no reason to use it. It's just no way as good as a Lissile in any way, shape or form. It makes noise, the zoom is terrible, it's just harder to use in general, you can see it in the UI, there was just no reason to use it there. A lot of us commented on that, and it seems that DICE have finally found the time to act on this. So what they've done here is they've lowered the zoom and they've increased the field of view when players are aiming down the sight with the SRAW for better visibility of targets both for close and further ranges. And additionally, they have removed the in-world icon of the missile that little red icon that you could see flying, and they've also reduced the audio cue for the missile quite significantly. So apparently there is still going to be some sort of audio cue, but it's presumably going to be much quieter. This should result in the SRAW being much more difficult to hear as an incoming missile before it is too close. So definitely some good changes there. I don't think that can be argued. Question is it too little too late, right? Most people who have unlocked this weapon and used it, are they going to go back and give it a second round after these changes? Probably some of them will, but a lot of them won't. Now, on the same subject here, there's also some significant changes coming to the reload mechanics for both the SRAW and the G84 TGM, so that is Lis's TV missile. So what they're going to do is bring a persistent reload timer to both of these weapons, and this move is to prevent an exploitative loop that would allow a large number of rockets to take place and fresh supplies waiting upon redeployment. So what they're referring to here is the fact that, for example, if you're playing as Lis, you can fire 2 Lissiles into the sky, and let's say you miss your target, you can manually redeploy and instantaneously get another 2 missiles, which seems a little bit exploitative, as they have said here. So we believe this does not bring anything healthy to the game when used at this level, and as a preventative measure, the reload timer will now persist through death. If a player dies from normal circumstances, though, this effect will be nullified and players will spawn with a normal ammo count. However, methods such as manually redeploying will result in the persistent reload taking effect. So that's a really great change right there. Next up, we have a rather significant balance pass to the Nightbird. So they see here that following the recent changes to attack helicopters a few seasons ago, we are bringing in similar changes to the Nightbird to achieve further consistency with other helicopters and balancing. So the flying characteristics are going to change with the Nightbird, resulting in it being more in line with our other attack helicopters. This aircraft will now feel heavier and hinge upon more momentum-based control following the changes to attack helicopters. In the past, we want pilots to feel like they are flying an actual physical entity over a lightweight vehicle that is overly responsive and twitchy. Now, I don't doubt for a second that this is going to annoy a lot of pilots that are currently used to flying the Nightbird, but personally, from my perspective, I think this is a good change. I have always found the Nightbird a little bit too twitchy, so much so that it's difficult to aim with it, and I preferred the way that the scout helicopters were in BF4, where they did have that weightiness to them, and they did have that momentum, and you could sort of use that to help you aim. So these are the changes they're going to make here. They're significantly lowering the auto leveling of the Nightbird when using forward input. So whenever you are holding the forward input, it sort of automatically levels itself out, whereas I don't think they'd ever did that in previous games, so that's going to be significantly lowered. They're tweaking the inertian tensors, whatever those are, to make sure the vehicle feels heavier and less twitchy, reducing the pendulation effect of the helicopter when swinging left and right on the x-axis. So this is the general sort of dodging maneuver that you will see pilots do. They'll sort of nail in on a target, and then they will, like he says here, like a pendulum, swing left and right to dodge missiles and that sort of thing. So that is going to be a little bit harder now. The Nightbird will now also gain a slight increase in speed when nosing down, again because of the extra weight and the momentum. They've tweaked the third-person camera with a focus on it now being lower and closer to the vehicle in order to feel more connected to it. And then they've removed one AGM from the Nightbird, as it is no longer required for this vehicle to be a potent anti-vehicle helicopter. Because if you remember, of course, the attack helicopter got buffed against vehicles, and then we've gotten the stealth bomber in there as well, which is also very effective against vehicles. So this is going to be very interesting. I wonder if AGMs are no longer going to be the go-to secondary weapon for the Nightbird, and people are now perhaps instead going to run the rocket pods. Now, the next change here is for the Draugr for the Stealth Bomber. So we have updated the equipment slots on the Draugr and aligned the DRFM jammer with other countermeasure options. The jammer will now stop all incoming lock-on attempts, further making this consistent with other countermeasure options, such as the flares, for the sake of muscle memory. Again, I might be reading into this too much. He says it can now stop all lock-on attempts. So I don't believe they're going to act like flares. Once a missile is in the air, it's still going to hit you. But if anything is trying to lock you on, it should stop it no matter what the source. Okay, so those are all of the dev notes. Now let's move on to the changelog here. So first up here, the DRFM jammer, that's for the Draugr once again, no longer stops working when the CIX Valrun, that's the cloaking mechanism, enters cooldown. So this was a bug that was in the game that's been there since 7.3, I believe. Whenever you would use the cloak and that would then go on cooldown, it would actually cancel your jammer, which could be very embarrassing in certain situations. So nice to see that that one is now fixed. C5 now applies correct damage to the ram's back panel, so that means that 2 C5s will be enough to destroy this vehicle. So here we've actually got some interesting changes to the Pondhawk, although interestingly here it calls it a hoverbike. So hoverbike now gets destroyed with 1 AA lock-on shot, such as stingers or other vehicle anti-air weaponry. They've also lowered the Pondhawk height limit by 100 meters. A lot of people were flying up in the sky ceiling and sort of abusing it by firing lock-on weaponry off of the back of the Pondhawk, so I think that's why they've lowered the flight ceiling here. They've also lowered the magnetic effect of the Pondhawk when near ground, so if you've ever experienced being on a Pondhawk and accidentally crashing into the ground because of that gravity effect, hopefully that should no longer happen. They've also fixed an issue with the Su-57 third-person zoom being different than the F-35, and they should now be a lot closer to one another. I believe Nizark pointed that one out to Eddie over on Twitter, so nice to see that fixed. Now, this is a pretty big change here for the jets. The 25mm cannon damage versus infantry has been lowered from 40 to 25. So instead of needing 3 rounds to kill somebody, you now need 4 rounds. Now, that may not sound huge, but if anybody's been using the jets and strafing infantry with the 25mm cannon, you'll know that it is easier said than done. Sometimes you have very limited flight time, and having to get 1 more round on target absolutely will make a difference. However, they've fixed an issue apparently with, well, they say the jet 35mm cannons, but I believe they're actually 30mm cannons that they're referring to here. Those were apparently dealing too little damage to soldiers, and they are now going to correctly deal 40 body damage. So they have now taken over the damage model that the 25mm cannons previously had. They fixed an issue with attack helicopter 30mm cannon and the X-Fan Draugr cannons damage. The sound feedback there was missing, so that was really annoying. A lot of the time, if you were getting attacked by either of those weapons, you would get 0 feedback, and you would have no idea that there was a helicopter or a Draugr indeed behind you. Now, this next one I'm very happy to see in here because I personally requested this as well, and I was thrilled to hear that Eddie was going to put it in the patch notes. So they have made the primary countermeasure of the Draugr, the DRFM jammer, they've made it use the same input as other vehicles to help with muscle memory and consistency. So with all the other vehicles in the game, your countermeasure button is always X if you're playing on PC, and for some reason with the Draugr, the jammer is on G, so they've now switched that around, and now the jammer is going to be on X, and I'm not sure what's going to be on G. Maybe they've moved the repairs over there. I don't know if they've completely swapped around, you know, equipment slot 1 and equipment slot 2, so just be aware of that, especially if you're a console player as well. I think this is going to be good for you because whatever button you use on your controller for your flares is now going to be the same button that you'll use for the jammer. It just makes sense, right? And that right there is pretty much the end of the patch notes. So I think in conclusion here, some good changes, definitely some changes that we've all been asking for. It's certainly good to see that they still are supporting the game. In fact, somebody pointed out to me in my last video that DICE never said they were going to stop supporting Battlefield 2042, even though I think a lot of people's reaction was that they have cancelled the game and it's no longer going to receive any content whatsoever. That isn't necessarily going to be the case. What they actually said, because I went back and read their statement, is that Season 7 was going to be the last season. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to be getting new game modes and additional balance patches like this one right here. However, when I put out my initial video about the new Outbreak game mode, a lot of people commented saying, why would I care? I already uninstalled the game after Season 7 released, and I finished the Battle Pass, I uninstalled the game, that's it now, I'm just done with Battlefield 2042, so a lot of these updates that are coming in here are only going to be for those few players who remain and are going to stick it out in Battlefield 2042 until the next game releases. Of course, player numbers have gone up a little bit here with, you know, the game being on Steam sale, so that's always good to see. But nevertheless, I think it's great that they are still making an effort and putting out the patches and thinking about player feedback for the players that are still left playing the game, right? In any case, I will definitely be checking out this patch on Tuesday. I'll most likely be doing that via a First Impressions live stream, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel, guys, if you want to see that and you want to check that out. Otherwise, as always, leave me your comments down below. Have a good one, and I'll see you all in the next video.